ABC 10 News at 7 starts now.
There's a very good chance some Padre fans will be inside Petco Park next month for opening day. On top of that, our local theme parks such as SeaWorld and Legoland may soon flip the switch on their rides. And Disneyland will return to being the happiest place on earth. The state is announcing a change that will allow those reopening sooner than previously thought. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. California is changing its tier system. That means we could see reopenings as soon as April 1st, which just happens to be Padres opening day. But there are still a few major hurdles to get over before we get that green light. Our ABC 10 News reporter Anthony Pura joins us from Petco Park to explain.
Steve, Kimberly, crowds at the ballpark always translates to businesses or for more business here for the restaurants and bars near the ballpark. And so they are excited to at least bring some of those fans back. So here's what the new guidelines are saying about the outdoor live events and places like ballparks. Starting April 1st for counties in the purple tier, capacity at the venues will be limited to 100 people or fewer. Attendance will be limited to regional visitors. That means people living within 120 miles. Advanced reservations will be required and no concessions will be allowed during the purple tier. Now in the red tier, things change. Capacity jumps to 20%, including suites. Suites will be limited to 25% occupancy. In addition, in-seat concessions will be allowed. Now, Petco Park was closed to fans last season because of the pandemic. Not only that, it was also a shortened season. This year, a full season with limited fans is enough to get businesses excited. We spoke with the manager at nearby Bub's at the ballpark. They said that they were anticipating the return of fans, even looking to expand their outdoor dining areas before opening day.
It's huge. I mean, the fans it helps drive our business and just for the atmosphere. I mean, people just love it.
Now, the state also releasing guidance for reopening amusement parks. Once the region enters the red tier, they'll be limited to 15% capacity. In the orange tier, that increases to 25%, yellow tier 35%, and attendance will be limited to in-state visitors. And right now, San Diego County still in the purple tier, but there is a lot of optimism that it will move into the red tier soon. We're reporting live tonight. Anthony Pura, ABC 10 News.
Anthony, thank you. Disneyland's resort president released this statement saying, in part, we are encouraged that theme parks now have a path towards reopening this spring, getting thousands of people back to work and greatly helping neighboring businesses and our entire community. Disney officials say they will share an opening date very soon.
In 10 days, a new group of San Diegans with underlying medical conditions will become eligible for the COVID vaccine. ABC 10 News reporter Jennifer De La Cruz explains how your doctor can use the language in the guidelines to get patients on the list.
On March 15th, vaccine eligibility will expand to Californians between 16 and 64 years old with underlying medical conditions. They include things like specific types of cancer, kidney disease, heart conditions, and type 2 diabetes. But at the end of that list, there's a caveat. You'll also be eligible if your doctor determines you're likely to develop severe illness or death from COVID-19. Dr. Ghazala Sharif with Scripps Health says figuring that out poses quite a challenge.
It puts the burden on the physician to decide you can get one, you can't. And I think that's very, very unfair to put a physician in that spot, and to the patient as well, where they're trying to lobby for themselves.
Patients will have to get a note from their doctor saying they've deemed them eligible for the vaccine. But with hundreds of thousands of patients at Scripps alone, it's a logistical nightmare. To avoid having all of those people call their doctors, Scripps is pushing out letters to patients who qualify.
As more and more criteria come out, then we can do from chart review, we can send those letters to you so you don't have to call. It's going to cause a lot of undue stress on the patient and on the physicians.
Even if you're lucky enough to get that coveted doctor's note, you're still not guaranteed to get the vaccine since there's not enough supply. Dr. Sharif fears they'll run into the same challenge they had when the vaccine first came out.
We had over 200,000 patients that met criteria, and we only had 10,000 doses. I'm really afraid the same thing is going to happen again.
Kaiser Permanente released this statement saying expanding eligibility to people with underlying conditions makes sense, but they added in part, demand for the vaccine still outweighs our supply, and we are working diligently to administer the vaccine to the communities we serve as equitably and efficiently as possible. Jennifer Dela Cruz, ABC 10 News.
Scripps patients who fall into the underlying condition category with a doctor's note can make vaccine appointments using their online portal starting March 15th. The note is required at the vaccine station when you check in.
A major milestone today on the road to ending the pandemic. Today, San Diego celebrated its 1 millionth vaccine dose. That includes both first and second doses. So far, more than 600,000 San Diegans have at least one shot. More than 300,000 have both shots. And here's the latest on COVID in San Diego County. The county reported 499 new cases today. That's more than 262,000 people have had the virus here. Sadly, though, 12 more people have died. In fact, over 3,300 San Diegans have lost their lives to COVID-19.
By the end of the month, the convention center will no longer be a homeless shelter. Today, Mayor Todd Gloria announced an end to Operation Shelter to Home. The convention center opened as a shelter last April. The city says it served more than 4,000 people. More than 1,300 people have found permanent or longer-term housing. Anyone still at the convention center will be moved to another shelter starting March 22nd.
The U.S. now has 3 authorized COVID vaccines, but many of our viewers have been asking about that 4th company that has been sending its vaccine around the world. Our ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl digs into why AstraZeneca has yet to arrive here in America.
The Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is currently in use in 60 countries. This week, the company announced it's shipping shots to 140 more nations. It's authorized by the UK, the European Union, and the World Health Organization. So why isn't it here in the US yet? Some critics say the FDA has been moving too slow. Others point to missteps by AstraZeneca.
As a consumer of this information, it's been actually quite confusing to make sense of the AstraZeneca data. It's been a lot harder than, for example, Moderna and Pfizer and with J&J, where it's just very straightforward. They chose a way to run the trial, and the data is right there for all of us to look at. It's been a lot messier with AstraZeneca.
AstraZeneca launched clinical trials in the U.S. and other countries last summer. A few weeks in, someone had an adverse reaction, and on September 6th, the trials were paused worldwide to investigate. The company got permission to resume the study in the UK 6 days later, but the FDA didn't allow the U.S. trials to restart for another month and a half.
My understanding is that the clinical trial sites in the U.S. were on pause for a prolonged period because there was not great information sharing between the company and what the FDA asked for.
Then in November, AstraZeneca revealed it made a mistake in one of the studies. Some British volunteers were accidentally given a half dose rather than a full dose. The results were actually better, but that didn't sit well with many experts. Dr. Mark Sawyer of Rady Children's Hospital is a member of the FDA's Vaccine Advisory Committee.
It absolutely raises questions. And not only why did that mistake happen, and does it tell us that there could have been other shortcomings of the study? So that will certainly come under scrutiny, I think, at the FDA meeting.
The FDA has a history of taking a longer look than other health agencies. Famously, in the 1950s, European regulators approved a morning sickness pill called thalidomide, while the FDA chose to wait for more data. The delay was warranted. The pill turned out to cause birth defects. AstraZeneca says its U.S. trial has completed enrollment, and it expects to have data available in the coming weeks. Then it'll submit an application to the FDA. Experts say it's on track for authorization in the U.S. by April at the earliest. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
Right now, the Senate is going through the voting process on President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan. Today, the 4 Democrats in San Diego's congressional delegation gathered to talk about why they support the plan.
The American Rescue Plan will deliver rapid relief to the millions of struggling Americans and offer continued aid as our nation recovers. And so I think it's a really good start for the Biden administration. I'm happy to be a part of it and working with them.
Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs pointed out the bill targets much of the relief for communities that need it most. Congressman Mike Levin says the bill has millions of dollars that will go specifically to smaller San Diego cities to help them through the pandemic.
I certainly would support any and all monies necessary to get people back to work, to get the vaccine available to them, and to get them back to their normal lives.
And today we also asked San Diego's lone Republican Congressmember what he wants to see in a relief bill. Darrell Issa says too much of what Democrats want to pass is not even related to COVID.
This $1.9 trillion, much of it will not be spent until 6 months, 9 months, or a year after the pandemic has ended. What is the purpose of spending money on state pension backfill, the post office, all kinds of other things that are in this bill? What's the point of doing that after the pandemic's ended? It really is just a payoff.
Issa voted no on the House version of that bill.